Hello, Godzilla fans, and we're on episode 4 of Godzilla Dissection, as I'm calling it, or I do Dissection, I guess, is the title of the overall project. But yeah, I'm trying to definitely get some more episodes out there as 2016 draws closer. We're almost near the halfway point of the year. And for this episode, as I said last time, I'm doing Godzilla, Tokyo S.O.S, or as it known as in Japan, Godzilla X Mothra X Mechagodzilla Tokyo S.O.S. Not longest title GMK, but I believe it is probably second place, at least as far as American translations would go. But yeah, this is one of my top favorite Godzilla movies of all time. Ever since I saw it way after the release date, unfortunately, because at the time I was restricted financially and whatnot. But when I finally did pick up the DVD, a good old FYE, I was pretty amazed with the movie. And this was the 27th Japanese Godzilla movie, the one right before the 50th anniversary of Godzilla Final Wars. So this movie has quite a bit of, quite a bit, going for it, technically speaking, as far as being so close to the anniversary. But of course, the tragedy is when you look it up, it's not one of the lowest grossing Godzilla films, but it did take a certain dive compared to films like the one preceded it, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla and GMK. And also, same thing happened with Godzilla Final Wars. Now, as far as I'm concerned, Godzilla Final Wars, this doesn't really surprise me that it didn't do that well at the box office. Tokyo S, however, I'm very surprised about. I mean, to me, the film was exceptional as far as Godzilla movies go. I thought it was very well done, especially for, let alone Godzilla movies, just as far as even, film at the time, 2003, that was I can't think of too many movies that came out the year. I'm a little rusty, I guess. That was several years ago, 2003. The biggest movie I could think of that came out that year was X-Men 2, but there could be a whole lot more I'm missing. I probably am missing a whole lot more, but that's as far as I recall. I'll do some research on that later, I suppose. But yeah, the film did not do too well as far as box office goes, and to this day, it's kind of a mystery to me as to why, especially when this film was came after something that had done pretty darn well, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, which I think was the second highest grossing of the Millennium series as a whole. I know GMK did the best, not surprisingly, followed by Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, and then third place goes to Godzilla 2000, and then after that, Mechagodzilla, S.O.S, and Final Wars were financially not too successful, at least as far as ticket sales, but they remain popular to this day. Now, I've done a lot of speculating on that. Maybe it was poor marketing. I'm not sure. Maybe it was the fact that fans were really tired of the whole alternate reality series, which really is strange because this film, as I'm sure a lot of people know by now, is the only direct sequel to any of the Millennium movies. Obviously, a sequel to Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. So, but at that point, maybe fans just really were tired of what had been done to the series. Although some of the films were pretty good, they do miss a certain flair that the Heisei series had, which had been very financially successful, very popular series. However, if I had to be realistic about it, it may have been, as I've said before in the past, as what happened with the show era, it may just simply been oversaturation of the market, for all I know. Now, I'm not a financial expert, obviously, but that would just be my analysis of it, I guess, because the difference between the end of the Showa era in 1975 and Return of Godzilla in 1984 was a good about 9-year gap. That allowed a lot of time for fan build-up, to really just grow again, kind of like how we have now. But at the end of the Heisei era, because of the travesty that happened in 1998 with the American Godzilla movie, Godzilla was only allowed a 4-year rest, basically, between 1995 and 1999 when the Godzilla 2000 came out. Now, I don't think the era was set up correctly. I mean, to me, the Millennium Era had a lot of problems going in just because 2000, which was an alright movie, as I already said in that dissection, but I don't think it was a proper intro movie for a whole new series. And then the fact that it was an alternate reality series, quote unquote, where every movie takes place in a different timeline, a different universe, probably upset a lot of people. I don't have anything against the Millennium series, I like it a lot, but those things probably did as a whole hinder it from being a lot more successful than it probably could have been and should have been. But enough about the finances of this movie. Let's get down to why I like it so much and why I think it's a very good movie. Now, like I said, it's the only direct sequel, so the continuity is there. It continues the story of Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. Now, what the film basically is about, I mean, the premise continues, right, and the basic concept this time around is that Godzilla is still a lingering threat, and they know he's going to return, so they're in a rush to fix Mechagodzilla. At the same time, the defense agency, I guess, as a whole, the military, people of Japan are being, I won't say threatened, but they are being warned that if humanity does not stop messing around with what they shouldn't, you know, the dead and advanced science and stuff like that, you know, tinkering with death weapons like Kiru, that eventually Mothra might turn against them. And that's what a lot of the first portion of the movie is about, building up that conflict between will Mothra actually turn on us, will Mothra fight for us in Mechagodzilla's absence, things like that. And then from there, like GMK, once the fighting starts, it does not stop, which is why I like this one and GMK so much. You know, it's one of those movies that once it starts, it does not stop. It's just consistent and very well done. So getting to the characters, now one thing that's disappointed me, I mean, although not really that much of a complaint, like most Godzilla movies, you know, most of the cast does not reappear from the last film. In fact, the only returning character really, or at least as far as major characters go, is basically Akane, the pilot, the original Mechagodzilla pilot in the last film. And her appearance is very brief as she says goodbye to Mechagodzilla. She apparently leaves for more training. Now, I'm kind of curious as to what the hell that even meant. I mean, does the United States in this film have mechs too? I mean, I don't see how they're going to train them. And apparently Japan is the one that has the mech, but it's not really a big thing to me. I mean, I think her storyline was, I won't say resolved. I mean, I think she had more final battle with Godzilla to do, but I guess I really wanted to just bring new characters, I suppose, for whatever reason. The whole love story arc from the last film is gone. If you know what I'm talking about, I'm really sorry for covering this one before Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, but like I said, I wanted to cover this one so badly. Because it's representation of kind of what I want the new Godzilla films to be. Above and beyond, though. They have to go beyond what this one was attempting to do. Didn't quite get there in some aspects, but it started a pathway as far as I'm concerned. Because I know there's a lot of debate about this one. It's not as much as like something like Final Wars, perhaps. But it has the same old debate going. Some say it's the best, one of the best, like me. And then there's some who say it represents a lot of good as far as effects go, but as far as being something new for the saga, it doesn't do much. And to me, I'm kind of in the middle ground. I'm definitely more towards thinking it's one of the best. It definitely is, in my opinion. However, it does have a few flaws. But these flaws came from places where they tried to do better. They just didn't take it all the way, as far as I'm concerned. And a lot of that lies with the human characters. Now, I'm pretty sure I pointed this out in my Godzilla-thon review. This movie is only 2 minutes longer than the first one. But the first one had a very human-based story. It only had 2 monsters. Godzilla was not on screen. Well, he was on screen quite a bit in that movie. But, like I said, only 2 monsters. one central main human character, really, Akane, despite the many other characters in the movie, not to discredit them. And that movie was only 88 minutes long. That Pritchard already said that, and you feel like you at least got a decent development from the characters, and they told us a lot about themselves, and I like that. Even though, to me, that's definitely not a perfect movie, I still enjoyed that much they did put that much effort in the writing for the characters. So now to this one. This movie has, like, almost double the monsters, basically, technically speaking, if you include Mothra and the Mothra larva. And it has a lot of human characters to replace the ones that have now left the story. And the thing is, they did it halfway. They started building them up with interesting, conflicting views from each other and stuff like that. But they did not take it the distance that it needed to make it a really outstanding Godzilla movie as far as humans go. I mean, humans are definitely interesting. They definitely do a lot more with them than they do in other movies. It's just sad to see that they were trying to go somewhere, just didn't really finish it. And I say that because the basic story with it, as I would explain, is there's a lot of conflict between Kiryu and Godzilla as far as people go. People keep saying the only reason Godzilla is even coming back is because of Kiryu. And then also at the same time, there's also conflict between Mothra, what Mothra wants as far as keeping balance in the, I guess, as far as natures and spirit goes. Humans should not fiddle with the dead, you know. I hate you explaining that. I really maybe I should have really done that one first, but in any case, you know, the original Godzilla bones are used to make Kiryu. So with that said, there's conflict of interest there as well, and supposedly Mothra's protection is no longer going to be a thing. Instead, Mothra will be against humanity. So between all the several human characters, a lot of conflicting ideas whether Godzilla should be allowed to go out and fight anymore, whether the project should just be decommissioned and let Mothra do the fighting, since Mothra supposedly will do that if Mechagodzilla is, you know, out of the picture. And it makes it very interesting seeing these humans interact with their differing views. I mean, yeah, sometimes Godzilla movies, yes, but I really liked it here because, you know, it just gets interesting. You saw people are, you know, politicians and part of the military, and then you have people like Hiroshi Kazumi, who's like experienced with all of this, and he definitely sides with the whole keep nature in balance thing. And then his, I forget exactly his relationship to Chujo. I think it's his, I won't say his grandpa, his cousin. I'm sorry, I'm rusty on that part. I forgot their exact relationship. I know they are related, and then even Chujo has a different viewpoint than, you know, his family member on what they should do. And that makes it interesting. To me, if other characters like Azusa, I had to say it, one of my favorite Godzilla movie actress crushes, but in any case, besides the point, there's not too much to her. I mean, you know, there's a little romantic interest, tension between the two of them, Chujo and her, and because she's one of the new pilots for Mechagodzilla. But that too is not fully developed as it probably, to me, should have been. And maybe it could have been if there had been a third Mechagodzilla movie, as they try to hint at, but I'll get to that later. So the romantic interest, it's there, they just did not develop it all the way, unfortunately. It kind of just, I don't want to say dies into the film, but it definitely takes a backseat to everything else going on. And then we have the character who basically reminds you a lot of the asshole guy we see in Pacific Rim. Later on, you know, the Australian pilot of Striker Eureka, you know, the guy who's a dick just to be a dick. We have that type of character in this movie, although to me it's a little, that's on the same level of development. I think developed just a little bit more because he's the son of a politician. His father doesn't really want him out there fighting discreetly, but the son wants to fight, he needs it. But overall, yeah, he's one of those cliches of just wanting to be a dick to be just cuz, kind of. But I still like his character a bit. And overall, though, you see what I'm getting at here. That, I mean, a lot of the tension, they could have made it just a little bit longer. I said, I think this movie would appeal to a lot more people if they, I hate to say it, but the romance between the two main characters should have been developed just a little bit more. And this movie could have been really something different as far as human interactions and in a Godzilla movie, which usually doesn't go beyond, you know, the general problem of what's going on. Even the best of the best have that. It's not necessarily a problem, but that's usually the focus of these movies as far as human characters go. You know, their vision or their spectrum of what's going on around them is limited to solely the situation. You know, you really don't see too much of the personal lives in these types of movies, which usually is a problem because there's a lot going on as far as dilemmas go. But here, when you bring up something like romantic interest, it should be addressed, because, you know, a lot of Godzilla movies have had this happen several times, and the same thing always happens. They never really fully develop it. It always usually dies off for whatever reason, or, you know, it just stays at some kind of level we don't get to see because the movie ends. Except for very rare occasions where it's very well done. I can honestly say in something like Invasion of Astro Monster, but that's a review for another time. So that said, the humans, to me, I like the conflict between them and their differing opinions, and I also like the little touches of what they tried to do just didn't. I guess maybe, I mean, to be honest, the writers, Toho was rushing these things out as they always have year after year, and I guess that was part of the reason why we now know they need to change that, because I bet somewhere out there probably was a longer version of the script, they just did not have the time to do it, and probably was not allowed to, just because of the way the nature of these films, of the way they're produced and made year after year like that, it can be difficult to add new things. GMK is one of the few that did, and did very well because of it. I think Toho should have been taking notes right there. I hate to lecture them on their own business, but not just my opinion. I mean, GMK, as much as people may like it or hate it, I think everyone can acknowledge it did very well, effects-wise, with the characters and what they did with them. And there's some pretty badass characters in that movie. This film comes close to that level with the characters, just not quite. That's the problem. But overall, though, human characters, I like them a lot. I think the acting is pretty well done, and they do get involved in the final battle, so, you know, that's very interesting. I like that. So, moving on to the monsters. Now, like I said before, I'm pretty sure people know this by now, the Godzilla 2003 is not only my favorite Millennium design, but also one of my favorite Godzilla designs ever. It mixes the best of the best. It has the menacing look of the Heisei and of the new Millennium designs mixed into one body, and it looks just right. Right head size, right tail design, right spines with the bone white classic look. I just love this version of Godzilla. And now they have the continuity, so he has a chest scar from the last battle that he had with Mechagodzilla, and I love that. The main thing you gotta realize about these movies, the Kiryu films, that they are Kiryu films. They're Godzilla movies, yes, but Kiryu is basically the main monster, the main character. Godzilla is definitely the villain. And I will say, this movie, as an improvement over the last one, definitely mentions Godzilla a lot more between the characters. You know, Godzilla is not left in the back seat as just a generic villain. You know, he's the main, he's just, you know, a problem, but he's tied into it in a lot of different ways. Not only is he a threat because of just what he is, he's also a threat because of Kiryu, in a sense. You know, the bones, the old Godzilla is in its way still wreaking havoc because of Kiryu, and now there's a debate whether, you know, to get rid of Kiryu. And that's what's interesting about this movie, that they're actually talking about, I think it's the first time it's ever heard of an anime Godzilla movie actually talking about, maybe we shouldn't be using him. And to me, that was an interesting topic. It really was. It was very nicely done. And Chujo, of course, is the main man who's against this. Like, I won't say Chujo wants him to go out there and fight so much. It's that he just doesn't want to see the project decommissioned. Kind of like the little girl in the first movie, where she kind of views Mechagodzilla as a living being, and people need to feel for him and not just think of him as the ultimate weapon. And I like that. Kiryu, besides looking very cool, before I forget to mention that Kiryu looks very great in this movie. He really does. I love how different it is from the one in the last movie. A lot more detail. Although the first one still looked really good too. But yeah, I just love that whole aspect of it. Kiryu really is a great character, and it's too bad that we never got to see the third film. I wonder what they're gonna do next. And Mothra, the Mothra larvae have not changed too much as far as looks, of course. I mean, how much can we do with them, I suppose? But Mothra looks really great in this one, so great that, of course, they carried this design over into Final Wars. I didn't mind the GMK design or the Heisei ones, but both those are nothing honestly, compared to the one you see in Tokyo S.O.S. Mothra looks great. The wings are the right size. She's the right scale compared to Godzilla. She has less abilities than she did in GMK or the Rebirth of Mothra series or in the Heisei, but I like about that. They keep it realistic. As funny as that may sound from a movie like this, they keep it realistic enough where you can have a very entertaining fight, but yeah, it entertains all at the same time. So what I think about the fight scenes in this movie, like I said, as far as people can debate as much as they want with this movie, but as far as technologically speaking, what they did cinematographer wise, the look of the movie, they did incredibly well. Now, to me, did they take it to the same level as GMK? They tried. They came very freaking close, just not quite. But then again, of course, they go for a slightly different tone. In GMK, Godzilla was like the ultimate evil. So you saw a lot of him killing humans outright and stuff like that. And then a lot of shots of humans actually pretty close to Godzilla. In this movie, like I said, they went for a very different tone. To me, that's one of the things that they should have done a little more in these movies. Definitely had Godzilla be a lot more menacing. I mean, we all know he's a giant animal, he destroys. But just a little more of the human Godzilla contact would have been greatly appreciated. Like, after what you see in GMK, if him interact with humans, you always wish for a little more of that in the movies that came after. I mean, I don't think Godzilla ever so much as looks at human being in these movies, which to me is fine in a sense, but once you go as far as GMK, you can't go back. To me, that's how I feel about it. Not that this Godzilla had to be just as evil, excuse me, but like I said, a little more human-monster interaction would have been greatly appreciated and lifted the movie up just a little bit higher. But like I said, that's where GMK is. It's the best money movie, undoubtedly and arguably to me, as far as I'm concerned. Excuse me. But as far as effects-wise, they do go to that level with GMK, and as far as getting that close, I mean, the sets look really freaking great. The CGI has dramatically improved over the last few films. Every time it's getting better and better and better, and this one, it looks just really freaking good. I mean, there's no fight scene in here that I really dislike the look of. The only bad cut in here, as far as I'm concerned, and even that scene I still love to death, is a scene where Mothra and Godzilla first meet, and then she drags him around, but they cut right to him sliding on the ground. I mean, to me, you should have at least showed Mothra at least show Godzilla tripping over, I don't know, a bridge or something, and then collapsing to the ground and still skidding from the speed that's been built up. But overall, I still love that scene to death, and the attention to detail they did in this one was really freaking great. I just love the action in this one. It's really freaking good. And of course, I love the music that goes along with it. I should also note that the composer Michiru Oshima is so freaking good in this movie. I love the score she did for Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. I love the score she did for Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, but this score is freaking amazing. And probably because it goes for a different element than the two previous Masaki Tezuka movies. He directed this, he directed Mechagodzilla and Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, but here, he's also going for a mystical element because Mothra's here. You know, he had to do a little more of the fantasy, not just straight up sci-fi, which it really added another element to this film that really needed an atmosphere to really take it to another height for me. This made it really interesting to watch and listen to. I mean, cinematographically and story-wise, as basic as it is, I just love the movie with that alone. Despite the fact that they didn't go as far as they could have, I really appreciate what I see here. Like I said, the action scenes are great. It really is one of the best fights on the whole Godzilla series as far as I'm concerned. I like it a lot better than the fight in the previous movie, because in the previous movie the fight was good, yes, but it had some moments I did not like. Anything that involves Godzilla getting tossed around in a comic, not a comic way, but a more Showa style way, I don't like too much. I mean, Godzilla's supposed to be a lot more imposing than that. So in this one, you know, they had Godzilla, he had the very, I guess I'll say it did very GMK-like aura, at least as far as the fights go. You know, he just can't be stopped. You can't stop him. And that's what I loved about it. He had some very impressive moments, the stares and the roars. It just spoke a lot to this Godzilla's character. He's just that unstoppable force of nature that they just cannot beat unless they all work together. Humans, Mothra, Mechagodzilla, they all work together, and they finally actually do it. they actually beat Godzilla in this one, like literally beat him into the ground, and then from there, different stuff happens, which I like. I like that part too. But I guess I should talk about the ending. Yeah, let me talk about the ending, 'cause that's where a lot of juicy stuff lies for this movie. So like I said, in a similar ploy to the last one, which is part I liked but I didn't like. I mean, I liked it a lot more than they did in the first one, where Mechagodzilla goes down for a while. This time they did it in a lot cooler way. You know, his face gets shot off, basically. I love that scene. It's awesome. And then Mechagodzilla comes back to fight Godzilla one final time, and the way they did it was really epic. I just love it. You know, Godzilla sees him coming, Mechagodzilla lands, have his face gone, and, you know, the fight continues, and it ends a pretty epic way. I love that scene. Now, the thing that always bothered me about the Millennium series, other than GMK, of course, is the only one that had the balls to do it, sad to say, but this movie just didn't show enough blood in the monster fights. You know, Mothra loses a leg, there should have been just a little bit of blood. Realistically speaking, and just for my own, I guess, sick things for realism / action in these movies, and just makes the fight more entertaining. You know, it adds that realism factor that these are, you know, despite being godlike creatures, they can be hurt. And so, and my favorite scenes of the movie, Mechagodzilla has this new awesome drill weapon, which apparently is a lot more effective than the Absolute Zero cannon, because at least it doesn't misfire so damn much. So he takes the drill cannon, drill arm thing, and just starts really just basically stabbing Godzilla to death. They should have had a lot of blood there. My only one of my minor quips about the movie just really show the severity of the wound. Oh, you get the basic idea as you see it getting pushed further into his body. But besides that minor quip, I love that scene. You know, take away all the music, and he's just really grinding Godzilla to death, and then after that, you know, they really at the high point of the fight, Mechagodzilla just unloads on him with the triple hyper major cannon, I believe it's called, the new weapon as a replacement to Absolute Zero, and they really just fry him good. And they have that awesome scene where it's just all silent, Godzilla just roars, and then music sets in, and then you really get the connection between this movie and the past one. And then, you know, it just all makes sense that this is the fate now for Godzilla and Kiryu, that this is the fate. They just need to be back where they belong, basically. Two abominations of men, both created by man, and finally laid to rest by them as well. At least as far as we know. But this story will probably not be continued ever, unfortunately. That's in the world of fan fiction, perhaps. But yeah, the basic story is that once they get to the end, but Chujo, who earlier had repaired Mechagodzilla, is trapped inside. So once Mechagodzilla decides to take Godzilla back to the sea, they have to do a whole rescue mission to get Chujo out. And that scene, I think, was greatly appreciated. Some, I guess you could say, non-monster action in a movie like this always goes a long way to helping it out one way or the other. Final Wars, it was bad because it was too damn much of it. Too many human kung fu scenes and other crap going on. But here, they had just the right amount, a little bit at the end, and it was good. You know, they ended up saving Chujo, and then the story resolves as Godzilla and Mechagodzilla go down together, webbed up by Mothra and towing cables. You assume that's the end of the story. And then the Shobijin say their piece, and hopefully Matt learns from their mistakes. And then at the very end of the movie, after the credits roll, which I don't think has ever been done before in a Godzilla movie, seeing something after the credits, you see they still have Godzilla's DNA. And I guess it was supposed to lead to a third film where something crazy happens, where I don't know if it was going to involve Biollante or Space Godzilla, you know, some kind of Godzilla mutant. Who knows? And unfortunately, we'll never know. But, like I said, it's very interesting thing they put there at the end. So, I think I've covered almost everything in the movie. So, yes, it has weaknesses and has strengths. And to me, the strengths of this movie overcome the weaknesses of it by a great deal. So while definitely a perfect Godzilla movie, it achieves a nice balance, and it has massive rewatchability for me. And yeah, it's one of my favorite Godzilla movies of all time. It just really is. Everything was done pretty darn well, in spite of its flaws. It's one I dearly love to this day. So ultimately, I think I would definitely award this movie. I'd award this movie about an 8.8. Excuse me. I hate to keep doing decimals on you guys, but definitely like around an 8.8 as far as out of 10. And I guess rounding off like IMDb, I guess I'd just be a 9. But yeah, my super specific, down-to-earth rating would be 8.8 because it aims to do a lot, accomplishes a lot, leaves some things that should have been tended to not so much complete, but overall it's a very solid Godzilla movie and one of the best as far as I'm concerned, especially of the Millennium Era, which struggled quite a bit on its own as opposed to the past eras and the legacies they left. But that's my review, a complete dissection of Tokyo S.O.S. So for the next one, which will be a Showa film, which one should I do? I've been contemplating this quite a bit, and I think let's just do the one I already mentioned in the review. Let's do Invasion of Astro Monster, also known as Monster X, sequel to Ghidorah the Head Monster. Let's get it next time on Godzilla Dissection.